I remembered the chill in the air as I stepped into the building that morning, my hands clenched tight around the strap of my old satchel. The lobby was marble, high ceilings, everything echoing with expensive hush, but my nerves drowned out the grandeur. I had rehearsed my greeting 100 times, determined not to fumble over my words. I wanted to make my sister proud. Alina was already waiting by the elevators, bright and poised, her hair and makeup perfect even at 8:45 a.m. She smiled wide for her colleagues, so wide, I knew it wasn't real. "There you are," she said, as if she hadn't texted me 5 times since dawn. Her hug was stiff, a performance for whoever might be watching. "Ready to meet the big kids?" I forced a laugh, pretending not to hear the jab. My heart was thumping, but I kept my chin high. Maybe, I thought, today would be different. Maybe today she would see me not as her little sister, but as an equal. We rode up together, Alina filling the silence with rapid-fire commentary about her latest project, her boss, her favorite lunch spot. I nodded, tried to keep up, but I could already feel my place shrinking, like a shadow behind her spotlight. When we stepped into her office, the space buzzed with energy. Her coworkers glanced up, assessing, their glances flickering over me before returning to their screens. Alina gave them a little wave, her voice carrying, "Everyone, this is my sister. Be nice, she's figuring things out." A couple of polite smiles. I gripped my satchel harder, praying my cheeks weren't flushing as hot as they felt. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. I watched Alina move through the office, utterly in control, her laugh bright and cutting. I couldn't help but compare her world to mine, a startup that no one had heard of, still fighting for a crumb of recognition. I wondered if she ever felt uncertain. I wondered if she'd ever let me see it. Just before lunch, Alina's boss called a company-wide meeting. I was invited to join. "You'll love it," Alina said. "It's a real peek behind the curtain." I took a seat at the edge of the long glass table, nervously tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. As the room filled, Alina took her place at the front. She was magnetic, the center of attention, completely at home. Her boss gave a quick introduction, and then it was Alina's show. "And before we get started," she began, turning toward me with a too bright grin, "I want everyone to meet my little sister. She's tried a lot of things. Still finding her way. Aren't you?" A ripple of laughter moved through the room. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I smiled, nodding, hoping the moment would pass quickly. But Alina didn't stop. She spun it into a performance, listing every failed project, every quirky job, every dream I'd ever chased that hadn't quite taken flight. She wanted to be a painter once, then a chef. Then she has some app idea. What was it again? More laughter. She's like a tumbleweed, just rolling wherever the wind takes her. It's kind of adorable. People laughed harder this time. Someone whispered, "A real free spirit," and the sarcasm in their tones stung. My chest tightened. I looked down at my hands, willing the tears not to fall. I'd felt out of place before, but never like this. Never with an audience. Never from my own sister. As the meeting moved on, my humiliation pulsed like a bruise. I barely heard the next hour. All I could think about was how small she'd made me feel, how easily the people in this room dismissed me as a joke, because she did. Afterward, in the hallway, Alina linked her arm through mine. "Lighten up," she said, grinning. "It's just a bit of fun. Everyone here has thick skin. You should get some." She left me standing by the elevator, trying to swallow my pride, trying to convince myself not to cry. I went home that night and stared at my ceiling, the laughter echoing in my ears. I replayed every word, every smirk. I wondered if she'd even noticed how much she'd hurt me. But beneath the shame and the pain, something else sparked, a slow, simmering anger. Why did she always get to write the story of who I was? Why did I always let her? That night, I made a promise to myself. I would show her, show all of them, exactly who I was. And the next time Alina laughed at me, it would be because she'd finally seen me standing in my own light. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the city lights beyond my window, turning over every memory like a stone in my palm, feeling their rough edges one by one. The humiliation was fresh, a sting on my skin. But as I lay awake, it wasn't just the day's pain that haunted me. It was every old wound my sister had ever given me, every slight that had gone unspoken, every laugh at my expense. Growing up, Alina and I shared a room until high school. She had her own side, neat color-coordinated posters of astronauts and doctors. My side was a mess of drawings, notebooks, paint, stains, books stacked 3 deep. I always felt like an intruder, my chaos a threat to her order, my dreams a distraction from her goals. Our parents loved us, but it was never a secret that Alina was the example. She got the A's. She brought home medals, certificates, trophies. She was organized, focused, steady as a heartbeat. When my report card came, it was always followed by a sigh, a lecture, a reminder to be more like your sister. I wanted to please them. I tried, God, I tried. But the things that made sense to Alina always felt strange to me. I wanted to paint, write stories, build things with my hands. I wanted to dream out loud, even if it meant failing in public. Alina wanted things neat, predictable, impressive. As kids, Alina would help me with homework, but it always ended the same way, her impatience growing, her voice sharper, until she finally said, "Just let me do it," and pushed me aside. It wasn't mean, not exactly. She didn't hit or yell, but it was dismissive. She always knew best. She always made sure I knew it. I never told anyone how much it hurt. I just got quieter, more private. I learned to hide the things that mattered to me, to protect my dreams from her rolling eyes or sharp words. By high school, we barely spoke at all, dancing in the hallway like strangers. But I remembered every moment. The way she'd introduce me to her friends as the weird one. The way she'd correct me in front of our parents, or mock my outfits, or laugh at my plans. I kept a journal back then, pages filled with secret wishes. Someday, I want her to see me. After college, our paths split. She rocketed up the corporate ladder. I bounced from job to job, never quite settling, always hearing her voice in my head, asking, "Why can't you just stick to something?" I tried to explain once that the world was bigger than a steady paycheck or a perfect resume. But she just shook her head. Dreams are fine, but you have to live in the real world. Now, staring at the city lights, I wondered if she was right. Was I really lost? Or was I just different? The next day, I walked through my apartment as if it belonged to someone else. My work table was covered in sketches, old laptops, mugs half full of cold tea. The whiteboard was filled with plans for my startup, ideas scrawled in every color, arrows and boxes and big question marks. I sat down and opened my laptop. The dashboard blinked at me, users logging in, new signups, a graph that had started curving upwards in the last month. It wasn't much, not yet, but it was something real, something I had built. I scrolled through my inbox. There was an email from Sarah, my co-founder. Investor call went well. They want to see more. Proud of us. S. Proud of us. Those words felt foreign and warm at the same time. I let myself smile, just a little. Maybe I wasn't a failure. Maybe Alina was just wrong about me. But then I remembered her laughter, and the smile faded. It wasn't enough for me to know what I was worth. I wanted her to see it too. I spent the day working, burying myself in code, ignoring my phone. I didn't eat, didn't shower, just lost myself in building, fixing, creating. Every time I got stuck, I heard her voice, "You'll never finish anything." Every time I solved a problem, I imagined proving her wrong. That night, I called Sarah. She picked up on the first ring. "You okay?" she asked, voice gentle. I hesitated. Rough day, I admitted. She waited, didn't push. I told her everything. The meeting, the jokes, the way I'd felt so small. "She's always been like this," I said. "It's not even new. I just, I thought maybe I'd outgrown it. I thought maybe she'd see me for real." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "Sometimes people need a little shock to see what's right in front of them." "What do you mean?" I asked. She laughed softly. "Maybe she needs a reminder that you're not the same kid she grew up with. Maybe you need to show her who you've become." Her words planted a seed in my mind. I couldn't shake it. Show her who you've become. For the next week, I kept my head down, working harder than ever. The deal was close, so close I could taste it. Our little startup had been negotiating for months to acquire a company that was struggling but had solid infrastructure. The deal would change everything for us. For me. On Thursday, the contract landed in my inbox. I opened the PDF, scanned the details, and felt my stomach drop. The company we were about to acquire? Alina's company. I checked the names, the addresses, the signatures. There was no mistake. Somehow, fate had lined us up like two pieces of a puzzle. For a long time, I just stared at the screen, hardly daring to breathe. Sarah messaged me. "We did it. You did it. CEO, baby." I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. And then I started to plan. That night, I lay in bed, heart pounding with something new hope. The anger was still there, but now it was joined by excitement, even joy. I imagined walking into Alina's boardroom, not as her lost little sister, but as the new CEO. I imagined her face, the shock, the realization. Would it hurt her? Maybe. But maybe that was the point. For so long, I'd wanted her approval. But now I wanted something else. I wanted her respect. I picked up my phone and sent her a text. "Hope your week's going well. Want to grab coffee soon?" She replied almost immediately. "Swamped. Big changes at work. Maybe next week?" I smiled, knowing more than she did. Over the weekend, the contract closed. My startup was now the parent company of Alina's firm. The announcement would come in a week after all the legal details. Until then, I was under strict instructions not to share anything. But that didn't stop me from planning. I wrote out every word I wanted to say, every truth I'd held back for years. I practiced in front of the mirror. I pictured her face. For once, I was in control of the story. The old wounds still hurt, but now they felt different, like scars that marked where I'd been, not where I was going. I fell asleep that night with a smile, dreaming of the day when I'd finally truly be seen. The days leading up to the announcement moved both impossibly fast and unbearably slow. Every morning, I woke up with a jolt, anxiety, and anticipation chasing each other through my veins. The deal was public soon. The company newsletter went out to all employees at 9 a.m. sharp on Monday. Over the weekend, I barely slept. My heart hammered every time I imagined walking into Alina's office, seeing her surrounded by her colleagues, realizing the person she'd laughed at, mocked, dismissed, was now her CEO. Sarah and I worked through the weekend, preparing for the transition. "Are you ready for this?" she asked as we sat in our co-working space late Sunday night. "I don't know if anyone's ever ready for this," I admitted, staring at the glowing screen. "But I need to do it. Not just for me, but for everyone who's ever been made to feel small." She smiled, squeezed my hand. "You've earned it. You're not that kid anymore." We finished the final emails, prepped the announcement, and I lay in bed that night, heart racing, rehearsing everything I might say, everything I might feel. The morning of the reveal, I dressed carefully. Crisp blazer, my favorite shirt, shoes that made me stand a little taller. I looked in the mirror and saw someone new, someone who had built something, who had survived heartbreak and humiliation, who deserved to be respected. The elevator ride up to Alina's office was a blur. My palms were sweating, but I forced myself to breathe. "You belong here," I told myself. "You built this." The company's HR director met me in the lobby. She handed me a badge with my name, CEO. I smiled, couldn't help it. The conference room was already full when I walked in. Alina sat near the front, flipping through her printout, chatting with the colleagues who'd laughed at me just days before. I saw a few familiar faces, people who'd watched her jokes and never spoken up. The room grew quiet as I entered. Some people recognized me, confusion flickering across their faces. Alina didn't look up at first, but then the HR director announced, "Everyone, please welcome our new CEO." I stood at the head of the table, heart pounding in my chest. Alina's head snapped up. She stared at me, eyes wide, color draining from her face. I met her gaze and gave a steady, polite smile. "Good morning, everyone. Some of you might recognize me. I was here last week as a guest. Today, I'm here as your new CEO." A hush fell over the room. Someone dropped their pen. I turned to Alina, held her gaze. "It's good to see you again, Alina." I'm looking forward to working together. Her boss, now my direct report, stood up, clearing his throat. This was unexpected, but we're excited to have new leadership. Please join me in welcoming. But no one clapped. Everyone was too busy watching Alina, waiting for her reaction. She finally stood, her hands shaking, face burning with embarrassment. You? This is a joke, right? She whispered, but her voice carried across the room. No joke, I said, keeping my voice calm. The deal went through last night. My company is now the parent company. I'm here to help us all move forward. Someone in the back let out a low whistle. Another person muttered, "No way." I felt a strange mixture of triumph and sadness. I'd waited for this moment for so long, but now that it was here, it felt less like revenge and more like relief. I hadn't needed to gloat. The facts spoke for themselves. Alina sat down heavily, her eyes never leaving mine. For the first time in our lives, she had nothing to say. After the meeting, people crowded around, congratulating me, offering nervous smiles, asking about the future. Alina hung back, alone, staring at her hands. When the room cleared, I walked over to her. She didn't look up. "How long have you known?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "A week," I said. "I wanted to tell you, but I thought it was better this way." She nodded slowly. "Guess you finally figured out what you wanted to be." I paused, looking at her, really looking, past the armor and the pride. "I always knew. You just never wanted to see it." She looked up then, eyes brimming with something I couldn't quite name. Regret, shame, maybe even respect. "I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "For what I said. For all of it." "I know," I said. "But this isn't just about me. It's about everyone who's ever been made to feel small in this room. That ends today." She nodded again, silent, as I left the room. The weeks after the reveal were a blur. News of the acquisition spread through the company, then the industry, then even our family. My parents called, stunned, proud, bewildered, apologetic all at once. "We didn't know," my mother said softly over the phone, "how hard you've been working. We should have paid more attention." Alina barely spoke to me at first. She kept to herself at work, going through the motions, no longer the center of every conversation. I wondered if she hated me now, if my success felt like her failure. But as the days passed, something shifted. People around the office started coming to me, not just with work issues, but with real stories. The quiet designer who'd always been overlooked asked if she could pitch an idea. The shy IT guy brought me a list of improvements no one had cared about before. I listened to all of them. I wanted them to feel seen. I wanted no one else to be laughed at or made small in my company. At our first all-hands meeting, I told my story. I spoke about what it was like to be underestimated, dismissed, mocked, even by family. I told them how it hurt, but also how it fueled me to build something of my own. "I know what it's like to sit in that chair," I said, "and feel invisible. I don't want anyone here to feel that again. If you have an idea, bring it. If you're struggling, ask for help. We're going to build something together, something that lasts." The room was silent when I finished. Even Alina, at the back, had tears in her eyes. Afterward, she found me in my office. She closed the door, stood awkwardly, hands twisting in front of her. "I was horrible to you," she said quietly. "All my life. I thought I had to win. I didn't want to be the one who failed." I shook my head. "You never had to win at my expense. We could have built each other up." She wiped her eyes. "I'm sorry, truly." I nodded. "I believe you. But you have to do better. Not just with me, with everyone." "I will," she said. And for the first time, I believed her. Our relationship wasn't fixed overnight, but we started meeting for coffee, talking like adults, not rivals. She apologized again and again, not because I asked her to, but because she needed to. And I forgave her, not because it was easy, but because holding on to pain only made it grow. At work, things changed. People spoke up more. Ideas flowed. The culture shifted from one of competition to one of collaboration. We started to win together. One afternoon, my father called. "I always thought you were lost," he said, voice thick with emotion. Turns out you were just taking a different road. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It's okay, I told him. I see it now. Sometimes I still think about that day in the boardroom, her laughter, my shame. But mostly, I remember what came after. The day I stood up. The day I claimed my place. The day I stopped needing anyone's permission to be who I am. Everyone has a turning point. Sometimes it comes wrapped in pain and humiliation. Sometimes it's the day you decide enough is enough. Have you ever been made to feel small by someone you love? What did you do next? Did you choose revenge, forgiveness, or something else? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear.